right, welcome back. Really excited to talk about what we have in store for today. Hopefully at this point you are kind of back in the groove, right, of 2026, right? So you have holidays and it's kind of like this blur. And, if you were on top of it and you were paying attention to some of the things that I've been talking about the last few episodes, right, you're probably ahead of the curve a little bit, right? But right now, right, we're sitting here, it's the end of January, and it's all about, do we continue the momentum of what you decided you're going to do in 2026? And so I want to kind of go back to some of the fundamentals. I want to go back to the basics of like, okay, I know what I want more of in 2026. I know what it is that I would ultimately like to see different at the end of this year compared to how 25 ended. And so I want to talk about a specific thing that you can put in place in your practice honestly, this will take less than the time of this recording if you just follow along with me, and you can actually implement this tomorrow, start getting results next week. So here's what it is. It is one of the foundational pieces of what we do when we work with different offices. And so the key here is, number one, deciding what we're going to focus on. And we're here for the New Patients Now podcast. So we're going to talk about increasing your new patients in 2026. And so what I want to walk you through is a very specific and formulaic way to actually assess, where are we today? Where do we want to go without being unreasonable, without putting goals in front of your team that they're not going to believe in, and ultimately how to make sure that those things we've discussed in the past around, okay, we set the standard, we hold people accountable, we coach, and we celebrate. All right. Now, this is something that we do with our clients all of the time and every month, and I'm going to do it with you right now. So if you are a member with us, this is going to be a great reminder. If you are not, then this is going to give you a little bit of insight into how we start our process. And this is also laid out in the book, New Patients Now, which if you don't have, I'd highly recommend. Goes into this in a little bit more detail. So let's kind of start from the beginning. We want to talk about your new patients. And so what we want to begin with is this mental trap that more new patients is not a good thing. So many of you are watching this and you're saying, hey, or you're listening to this, well, I'm here because I want more new patients. That's why I'm listening to New Patients Now, right? Which is great. But some of you may say, well, that just means more work, right? Well, busy does not actually equal productive, right? And so what we want to be able to do is put a system in place that allows you, as the leader in the practice, as the business owner, as the doctor, right, to be able to focus on what you need to focus on, which is the clinical excellence, the care of the patient in front of you, and ultimately being able to serve more people with the care that you take such pride in. And so when we talk about putting together a plan to systematically increase your new patients, I want to focus on step one of that today. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to establish a baseline goal for you and your team that you can come back to each and every day of the month and actually push towards that. Get everyone on the same page. All right. So here's how we're going to do it. Number one, I want to take the last 12 months of new patients that came into the practice. Okay. So it's January. So you might as well just look at 2025. Okay. So you're going to take each and every month, and I'm going to actually write them all out or pull them all up on the computer. So if I look at January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December of 2025, I want to look at how many new patients actually came in for their first appointment in that month, right? Not how many were scheduled, not how many were supposed to come in, right? But how many actually walked through the front door of the practice. Okay. And I'm going to make sure I have all of those. So let's say January was 20, February I had 18, May I had 20 again, March. So 17 in April, 15 in May, spiked back up to 22 in June, dropped a little bit to 18 in July. August we had 24, September we had 21, October we had a little bit of a dip. November, so let's say 13, 15, and then we finished the year strong at about 20. Okay. So you're now looking, and here's what I want you to do. As I'm going through this, pause the episode, go get the information, review it, like pull it out, do this activity as I'm going through it, and it's going to be able to actually be implemented into your practice, like I said, tomorrow. So now we have that list. I have the last 12 months of my new patient data, okay? Then I want to look at three numbers. I want to look at the average of the last 3 months, okay? So I want to look at December, November, and October of 2025. So in my example, I had 13, 15, and 20. And so I want to get the average of that. So 13 plus 15 plus 20 was 48 divided by 3, 16. All right. So my average over the last 3 months is 16. Okay. Then I want to look at the last 6 months. So July through December. Okay. So I'm going to take all of those numbers and divide that by 6, right? So my average over the last 6 months is 18 and a half. Now, can you get half of a new patient? No, you cannot. So here's what we're going to do here. Because we're in the process of setting a baseline for growth, we're going to round that number up. So if you have decimals, if it's not exact, I'm going to round up. So I had 18.5, I'm going to round that up to 19. All right. Then I'm going to take the average of that entire year. So I'm going to take that whole year, and that is going to get me... This is great podcasting, by the way. If you were to Google exceptional, entertaining, thrilling podcasting, right? This is what it's going to be. It's going to be a guy doing math in the middle of the recording, okay? Now, you get to decide whether or not you judge this for that, or you could just follow along with me, get the information, apply it to your practice, watch what happens, and then you'll be like, oh man, I'm so glad I sat through that painful 4 seconds where Flint was doing math. Okay, so my last 12-month average, so the average of each of the months over the last 12 was, again, actually, interestingly enough, 18.58. So what are we going to do there? If I have a decimal, I'm going to round up. So my average over the last 12 months was 19. My average over the last 6 months was 19. And my average over the last 3 months was 16. And now I'm going to take those three numbers. I'm going to take my last 3-month average, my last 6-month average, and my last 12-month average. Okay, that's 16, 19, and 19 for me. I'm going to add those up. All right, and I'm going to divide those by 3. I'm going to get the average of those averages. And in my example, that takes me to an even 18 new patients. Now, here is what I want you to understand about why I'm doing it this way, as opposed to why I would just take the average of the last 12 months. Because you have seasonality in your business, right? In a practice, you have seasonality. You may have a recent reason why your numbers are bad. You may have a recent reason why your numbers are good. So if your last quarter of the year, you just absolutely blew it and just paid no attention to new patients and it was horrible, right? Well, that's actually pretty important. And so I want to capture what has happened in the last 3 months and weight that the same as I would weigh all of the last 12 months. Same thing is true if you've implemented something in the practice that actually is increasing the new patients, right? So what this is going to allow you to do is to get a more realistic average that allows us to look and say, hey, how are we really doing over the last 12 months, keeping in account some of the more recent realities of the practice, okay? So you're going to get that weighted average, the average of averages, okay? So now I'm going to take that number. Okay, I'm going to take that number, and here's what I'm going to do. That is where you are starting today. So today, this is your starting average. When we work with clients, this is the starting number of, hey, our relationship gets judged on this number, and so your relationship with executing this in your practice should be around this number. This is our starting point, okay? Now, I want to establish 2 targets, right? First is a baseline. Second is more of a stretch goal. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that starting average, which for me was 18, right? Again, pause this, do your own math, pull the numbers out, figure out what it is, all right? And then I'm going to add 10 to 15% to my starting average. So if mine was 18, I'll multiply that by 1.15, and that's going to get me 20.7. Okay, I have a decimal. Can I get 0.7 new patients? No, I cannot. So what am I going to do? I'm actually going to round that up. So my baseline is going to be 21, okay? And then I want to take that number, so the 21, and I'm going to add 10 to 15% again. Now, I'm a little bit more ambitious, so I'm going to do 15 just like I did the first time. So 21 times 1.15, okay, 24.15. Now, Flint, that's like pretty close to 24. It's a decimal. I get it. Well, what am I going to do with that? Well, you guessed it. We're going to round that sucker up. So it's not 24, it's 25. So for my practice, last year, my weighted average of averages, my starting point is 18 new patients a month. Okay. Now, the baseline target is going to be 21, and my goal target is going to be 25. Okay. This is how we simplify it. Now, why am I doing it this way and not saying I'm doing 18, I want to get it to 30 tomorrow? Well, because that's insane, because you don't deserve to get 30 tomorrow, because you're doing nothing today at 18 to go get 30 new patients a month, right? Now, if you're going to, it's the action you take. But if you were to go to your team after a year of doing 18 new patients a month and say to them, all right, team, we are now going to do 30 by next month. Well, that's not going to work. That is, they're going to look at you and say, that's insane, right? So like we're in the same process, right? I have a meeting literally this afternoon, and we're going to talk about targets for 2026 and making sure everything is lined up and ensuring that. And now, am I going to walk in and say, hey, last year we averaged this. By the end of this month, I want to get all the way to this number that is like triple. No, I'm not. There is a scale process to it. Like we have to kind of go month by month, quarter by quarter, build it up over time. So if you were to go to your team and say, hey, last year we averaged 18, here's what I want to do. I want to start the year with a new standard, a new target where each month we are aiming for 21 to 25 or more new patients per month. Okay. And every single day, okay, now that you have those numbers set, here's what we want to do. You want to elevate the importance of this statistic. Okay. And the only way you can do that is by consistently bringing it up, reminding, holding the team accountable. So if we have a goal to increase the monthly new patients, right, by 3 to, that would be 7, okay? Well, you may be asking yourself, well, Flint, 3 to 7 more new patients a month, like that's not that exciting. Well, if you don't think it's that exciting, it's because you don't understand the math. And we have to go back to the math, okay? So now you need to understand how valuable every one of those new patients are, okay? And reminding yourself of what is the average value of a new patient. So to quickly do that, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take that average number of new patients from last year, the total average, right? And I want you to look at the total collections from 2025. If you take total collections, divide that by the number of new patients you had last year, that is going to get you a rough estimate of the average value of a new patient in your practice. Okay. Now, for most dental practices, this is going to average somewhere around the 2,500 to 3,000 number. So if I just use my example and we're looking for, let's call it on average, 5 more new patients per month. Okay. Well, what does 5 more new patients a month for 12 months do for my office? Well, if I take 5 times let's go on the low end, call it 2,500. 2,500 times 5 is $12,500 a month. If I do that for the entirety of the year, that's $150,000. And all I did was set a reasonable target with me and my team around the new patient statistic. It's going to bring in another $150,000 into the practice, and I didn't have to go spend money on marketing. I didn't have to go hire a new person. All I do is I put more attention, energy, and focus around that statistic. Okay. And now let's talk about how to do that, right? So you have to run your math. And if you didn't do the math, pause this, go backwards, do the math again, please. I am begging you to do this math, because unfortunately I will get more excited about this for you than you will, and you're going to miss the plot here. So run your math, get your average of averages, set your baseline, which should be 10 to 15% higher than your starting average, and then set your goal, which is 10 to 15% higher than the baseline. When you get a decimal, always round up, okay? Now, Here's how we make sure that that actually gets achieved. Because for most of you, like my example is pretty conservative. For most of you listening to this, watching this, whatever it may be, if you got a practice, right, and you're in dentistry, dental specialty, really any kind of private practice, right, your new patient value is going to be somewhere in the $1,500 to $5,000 range. Now, depending on what type of practice you have, that's going to vary. For dental, again, it's probably $2,500 to $3,000. So for just 5 more a month, which is less than, it's like a little bit more than a 20% increase on an 18 new patient a month practice. That brings you back $150,000 over the course of the year if you consistently focus on the fundamental of making sure that those opportunities occur. And the numbers I'm talking about, they're not doubling your new patients. It's not tripling your new patients. It's increasing the new patients in a way that doesn't require dramatic capital expenses for you. Okay. But here's what has to happen with that. Okay. We have to elevate the number, and then every single morning in your huddle, if you don't have a huddle, just start a huddle and just talk about this. Right? And everyone on the team needs to understand, hey, this year we're implementing a baseline and goal target for our new patients. All right. And it is going to be whatever your number is that you calculated. It is going to be, for me, it's 21 and 25. All right. So I'm going to walk in and say, all right, here, let's put a graph up on the wall. We're going to chart it out to 21 and 25, and every single day in the morning huddle, we're going to talk about how many new patients have come in to the office so far that month. Are we on track to hit our baseline target or our goal target, right? If we're not, what are we going to do to change the number? So what happens when you talk about that every single day? Well, if you talk about it every single day, then the person up front on the phone who has a new patient opportunity is going to know, oh, wait, I should actually try and get this person to come in this month, not next month, because we're a little bit below where we want to be. Okay, well, what happens when the clinical team member is in the back of the office and they're talking with someone and they're saying, man, this place is great. My friends would love it here, right? Do you think they're more likely or less likely to ask that person for a referral, to say, hey, you know what? We would love to serve your friends and family. Tell them to come on by, or you know what? Actually, have them reach out to us and we will make sure we take great care of them, right? See, when this is constantly in the forefront of the mind of the people who are in the office, right? Well, more of those things are going to happen. Because the eyes and the ears are only see what the brain is looking for. So if you systematically were to decide that every single day we're in the office, we're going to talk about if we are on track or off track to this single statistic, it will generate roughly $100,000 to maybe $500,000 for you over the course of 2026 if you do it well. Okay. Now, again, this is what we do for people. So like if you start it and nothing happens, then you probably just need help to do it. But there's a reality where you can just set the number, start to do some things, and you're going to see those things change. But if you need assistance on how to actually get people to change behavior and how to actually train them to do it well and how to make sure that the accountability isn't totally on you, right? That's where we can be of assistance. But it is something that without question, if you were just to do what I've laid out today, you can dramatically change the results that you see next year. It just requires that discipline, right? So if you said 2026, I want to be attractive to more new patients to my office, to more referrals to my office, well, this is the first step. Putting the score up on the wall, talking about it all the time, getting people encouraged and engaged in this number. And every time somebody decides to be a part of that, to engage in it, to help drive that result, right? Celebrating that, right? Looking for opportunities to actually coach a team member on, hey, it looks like you had an opportunity for a referral there. Hey, looks like you had an opportunity for a new patient on the phones, right? And you're not always going to see that. But this elevates the importance and the consciousness of this specific area of the practice. And so all that to be said, focus on the fundamentals. It's the beginning of the year. You have an opportunity now to establish those standards. And this is the place to start because it is where the patient's journey and their experience with you begins. And if you can do these things right, it is either going to dramatically change your results or it is going to highlight to you where you have process and system gaps inside your practice. You see, this is either going to work, or you're going to launch this to your team. You're going to tell them about the goals. They're going to realize that they're pretty reasonable, to be honest. You're going to talk about it, or somebody on your team is going to talk about it in the huddle every single day. And then we're going to watch and we're going to see, hey, are we hitting the number? Are we not? And you know what question that's going to ask? It's going to beg, well, why? Well, why isn't the number get? Why aren't we hitting the baseline? Why aren't we hitting our goal? And the answers to those questions are going to tell you where you need to put your attention and energy next. But if we're not doing this, we never learn that lesson. And so I encourage you to put this in place. I encourage you to do the math. I encourage you to just take the time. What does it take? 2 minutes a day to talk about this and elevate the level of execution and the level of engagement for your team in driving new patients into the practice this year. I promise you, you'll see great results. And if there's anything we can do to help you in that process, if you put this in place and you realize that the numbers aren't moving, right, that probably means there's a deeper issue in the office. And we would love to be a part of that and help you kind of figure out what that is. And so I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.